And also, just first want to say thanks everybody for showing up. I love some people are representing with Joyride in the background. I'm a mom. I have like an 11 and a 14-year-old, and I look back on my life when I had like little ones, like toddlers, and I am still like it's a miracle I got through this at all. So anyway, so excited to talk to all of you.
Hey, if you're not asking the question, if you could go on mute. The first person is Alexis. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Adele. So this is your first directorial debut. So I'm curious what the best and or most challenging aspect of transitioning to directing was and how you prepared yourself.
Uh, I was a television writer producer for most of my career. And I did that while being the most challenging part of my career at that point, running a writer's room and running a TV show. I did that while I also was a mom of two young toddlers. And I feel like coming out of that, everything else has felt like a vacation, truly. And the most difficult part of getting into directing is honestly, it's like the perception and the self-confidence. And I came out of it telling all my female friends, you have to get into directing because our stories have been told by somebody else, especially in the feature space, that it's really time for us to move into that. And women have this thing of like not putting ourselves up for jobs unless we're hugely overqualified, which apparently it's something like, men don't have any issues about. And going into that space, just the level of organization, most work in a feature, like 80-90% of that is done with prep. And, come as a working mom, like prep, I have no problem with, like, we're there. The most challenging part of directing, which was not used to, but I loved, was just being in the moment. Because, as working professionals, as parents, like we're so used to existing in multiple time periods. Like we're thinking of like things we already did, like what we've got to, like fires we have to put out now, stuff we have to plan for in the next hour and the next day and the next week. Whereas with directing, it's just purely being in the moment, making sure you get everything you want. So that was the biggest thing. But just in terms of feeling qualified and prepped, I felt fully ready for that.
I love that answer. Thank you.
Great. Next we have Ashley Heron Smith. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
No, you got it right the first time. Thank you. Hi, Adele. I want to start by saying I enjoyed this movie so thoroughly. I have watched the screener twice. It made me laugh my ass off. It made me cry. It gave me all the feelings. And it's so reminiscent of Bridesmaids, The Sweetest Thing, Girls Trip, and even The Hangover. What were some of the films that you went back and rewatched and referenced that really influenced you in making this movie?
You've actually mentioned the three major films that were our influences moving into this, which is Girls Trip, Hangover, Bridesmaids. And I mean, Hangover for like the vibe and the joy of it, like you just were so excited to go to the movies and just like laugh your ass off. But with Girls Trip and Bridesmaids, it just hit on a thing that was so close to home for my friends and I, which was it's something you kind of take for granted in your 20s, but then when you move into like, the insanity that is your 30s, like finding yourself career-wise and what you're building your family, etc. The things that got us through all those periods were our close female friendships. Like, and those can be really loaded propositions sometimes, but at the end of the day, you're there with each other. And also that sense of identity and belonging where you're just kind of like, who am I? Like I used to be, like a certain kind of energy, like post-graduation, like in our 20s, but now like I'm finding myself professionally, I'm finding myself who what I mean in all these different spaces. And and I think we always went back to the theme of like, if you find your people, you're home. If you find your people, you have your strength, you have, you belong. So we didn't see or have a lot of movies that kind of celebrated that female friendship. And also with my girlfriends, like some of my best experiences were going to those movies, and also like going to Magic Mike when I was just like 7 or 8 months pregnant, like completely inappropriate. And me and my girlfriends and like a theater full of like gay guys just like literally throwing money at the screen, like that thing. Feeling like, oh my God, I needed this in my life. So that, all those reasons were the inspiration for Joyride.
Well, thank you, because I needed it in my life, so I appreciate it.
Great. Next we have Jenna. Jenna.
Thank you so much, Adele, for chatting with us today. Oh my gosh, this movie is hilarious. I watched it with my sister the other night and was rolling on the floor. And Ashley and I were just texting back and forth the whole time. Like, why are we not watching this together? So many moments in here, hilarious moments, touching moments. Do you have a favorite scene from the film?
I have a couple of favorite scenes, and they're both very different. One is the K-pop moment, because, again, we created this movie because it's just like insane wish fulfillment for us. And at this point, I feel like most women and gay men have had a fantasy of being in a K-pop group, because why not? So we built it into our movie, and it was our 4 actors, who had like recorded the song and had done all this choreography, and then being able to shoot it on set and seeing it all come together. Like I remember shooting it and looking at our filmmakers going like, oh my God, did we just create like a K-pop sensation? And also it's just that, like, you have like your regular lives, and it happens when the characters are at such a garbage point of their journey, that just being able to let loose and just have the time of your lives in like a purple hair wig, like that's the space I feel like we all secretly want to be in. So that was like my first favorite scene. And then the other one is there's a more emotional moment with a lead character where she has this video of her birth mother. And it was one of those unexpected but very real moments for us. And I think for a lot of people who've watched the movie too, like, again, we're this R-rated, ridiculous, inappropriate comedy, but it has real heart. And I think like that's one of the scenes where it comes through.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Ashley with Ashley & Co.
Hi, Adele. Like Jana was saying, we were texting back and forth. I think I was slightly ahead of her though, because I was like, oh my God, you're going to get to this part and you're going to die. And she'd text me back and be like, oh my God, I did. But honestly, I think you had me hooked as soon as young Lolo bodied that other kid. I was like, man, this is like the movie for me. Because I was that kid on the playground that'd be like, I'm sorry, what? Statute of limitations have run out on that, right? Okay. So anyways, you had me crying. I was laughing so hard. So between writing all this out and actually directing it, how did you keep a straight face? Was one scene harder to shoot than another? Like, which one took the most takes?
Well, really, like our actor Sherry Cola, who plays Lolo, to me, there's almost like no line of demarcation between Lolo, the character, and Sherry Cola, the actor. She is 100% like that best friend, like we either have or wish we had, who's just kind of out of control, who always brings a ray of sunshine in your life, but also you're just like, I can't bring her around my family sometimes because it's too much, just too much, and maybe just like lives too close to the edge. And so she's in every scene, like nonstop cracking up. She makes the crew crack up. And she, there was a scene which which actually didn't even make the movie. It was her and the characters of Lolo and Audrey in this little guest house, and they're getting high on just like smoking weed. But a side fun fact, like those actors don't actually do drugs. Like we had to coach them on how to like light a bong. Like Ashley Park was like full on like trying to suck the part of the bong where you put the weed in. She's like, I suck here. I'm like, no, we don't suck there. And the whole time, we have all these jokes, but we actually have all these alt jokes. So we have a big tent of writers who just keep like throwing extra jokes because you don't know what works the best. And so between like all these extra jokes coming in the smoke-filled like hot box of a room, and Sherry Cola just nonstop like going at it with Ashley, like they genuinely crack each other out. Like they could not keep a straight face through half the jokes. I'm like, this place is filling up with smoke. One of my camera people like has like asthma. Like we got to get out of here. Like let's go. Let's try to maintain some semblance of professionalism here.
That's amazing. I love that. I hope that's on a blooper roll somewhere, or like
Oh
deleted
God.
scenes when it comes out, because that sounds awesome.
Okay. By the way, I see a handful of you have multiple questions. I'm marking that down, but I just want to make sure everyone gets to ask a question. So I'll come back to you. Next is Tessa.
Thank you so much for the time today. This movie is, I love it because like I'm laughing so hard and then I'm sobbing at the end and I'm like, what, why am I like, what's happening here? You're toying with all my emotions. It's a roller coaster. You talked a little bit about Sherry, but just the rest of the cast in general, can you talk about them? Because it feels like they're all so like exactly their character.
You know, we wrote the characters a certain way, but they really didn't come to life until we had our actors cast and they informed their characters. So we got to know them, our writers got to know them, and we started working a lot of their own personality into the characters. And I think that's when, when the magic really happens. Because on the page, you'll write a character like, oh, she's the good girl who has like something to prove. But when we learned, I got to know Ashley Park more. So, for those of you who do know her, this amazing Broadway star, like Tony nominated. She was this, like had this insane performance on Mean Girls. But she came up as this like Korean American actor in Ann Arbor, in a space that didn't have a lot of other Asian faces. And when you grow up being like the minority kid or the Asian kid, I think what sometimes people don't understand is that it's not just about being a good looking person with acting talent. You have to grow up in a world that never looked at you as the lead of their school play, or like the hot girl, or like, and not being able to see yourself. So then being able to get to the point where like you have enough confidence to be able to be looked at as a star of it, of a major Hollywood movie, like that takes a big leap. And Ashley Park has all of that. It's amazing. And the other side of it is being able to use all her like, I'm going to say use all her like personal damage, like which she openly talks about. So I'm not talking out of school here. About being this young woman in this space that was not built for you, that does not look like you, and trying to find your space in it. So we would use all her experience and put that into the character of Audrey, which is, this try hard lawyer young woman who's kind of lost inside a little bit.
Great. Next we have Candy.
Hi, Adele. Thank you so much for speaking with us. The movie, I'm echoing what everyone has said, phenomenal. We laughed and laughed and laughed. It was just fantastic. I can't wait to watch it again. I need to watch it again because it's just so funny. And those moments were just wonderful. Your cast, the leading ladies were absolutely phenomenal. It's like they were friends, like in real life, so my question is, obviously all four of them, they all brought different things to the film. Did you see yourself in any of those characters? And if so, which one?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm old as hell right now. And and I would say I have been one of those characters at different parts of my life. I think the one I identify the most with is Audrey, that whole, because I grew up in like a, very conservative culture, high expectations, like OCD, always trying to be like the girl with a shiny star, of always trying to prove myself and feeling like there is like this inner like weird savage creature that also wants to come out and play. And then there's been parts of my life where, again, I feel like more of a Lola, where I just like, I want to just flip the world off a little bit and just, revel in my own thing. The cat character, okay, do not have a tattoo on my lady parts, but, that there is that thing of, I think women inhabit this space of like how we are professionally, and especially when we become parents, and you're part of like the PTA, or like you're in the moms group, like you always want to project like, oh, I'm the good mom who's on top of it, but cool, but but there's this part of you that was this college girl, who's done some things, and it's just hard to like like rationalize or like make the two parts of you fit together. And then the Deadeye part. Okay, so the Deadeye part, I feel like we all have like that weirdo cousin in our family. You're just like, what is happening? But we love them. But like, what's going on? There's like a different drummer. I don't know if like there's been a part of my life when I was like very little where absolutely like you're just like the weird kid with like the headgear and like just not listening to the same kind of music as anybody else, going just like, that's it, I'm just a freak who's just going to be alone forever in my life, and I'm just going to have to be okay with that.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Angela, you're up.
Hi, Adele. Thank you for having me. This film was so funny. I seriously laughed so hard, and I found myself crying as well. There were so many relatable moments. The comedic timing was really, really great. At any point, did you let your actors improvise?
They were improvising all the time. So the way comedies work is like there's the funny on the page, and like I said, you have writers on set who are feeding them lines, but where it just comes across and feels real. So it doesn't just feel like, oh, these are funny people reading like pre-scripted jokes. Like, it has to be real, it has to be in the moment. So they would have their scripted lines, but even for their scripted lines, like they're just nonstop, like bouncing off of each other. There's this scene, I mean, we're among like mommy bloggers. I just also don't want, I'm a savage and I say all kinds of nasty things. But Sherry Cola, had this thing where she jokes about like getting with Baron Davis and how big her mouth is. And she does this crazy thing where she's like, where it literally looks like she's unhitched her jaw and could swallow like a small melon. Like, that's all our actors. Like, they're the ones just letting it rip.
I love that. It was so brilliantly done. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and my only follow-up to that is that, like we have you don't often see female faces in the being the leads in an R-rated comedy, because it's much more the domain of like these guys. And sometimes there's this perception of like, oh, are women even like that funny? And that's why, and we know they are, but so it's so exciting to see it come to life and see it, see people in the theater who paid money to go see it, like react to it on that level too.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're coming around for round 2 now. So Jana, you're up.
Okay, so this had a great soundtrack. If you're going on a road trip, joyride with your besties, what are the essentials and what's on your playlist?
Oh man, like there's like so much on the playlist. We had this amazing music supervisor, Toko Nagata. And it was also part of us selling the fact that we weren't actually in Asia when we shot it, because we shot during the pandemic. And being able to sell like that party feel. So on my playlist would be Best Friend, obviously, because again, that party feel to it. Not totally appropriate, but when it came up, because it was so ridiculous, we loved WAP. And then we had at the end of the soundtrack, we have Juicy by Ramen Girl. So this was actually done for our movie, and right at the end. And after I listened to it, I was just like bouncing to it like the whole time. So yeah, big shout out to Ramen Girl.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Ashley and Co.
Okay, so this is a story about friendship amongst other things. And I know you had a chance to work on the script with your friends, which I think that's amazing. What was that collaboration process like? Did you kind of work any of your real life stories into it? Obviously, you don't want to incriminate anyone with, certain tattoos or adventures with basketball teams, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, without like naming names, like I think it was inspired by like our own stories that we tell each other, because that's what you do like with your girlfriends. Like, you go out, you have dinner, you escape your life, and you just say all the awful, terrible, like super funny stories that you wouldn't share with anybody else. And we're all professional writers. We've been writing for like other people most of our careers. We're like, let's write this for us. I think the big takeaway for us too is that, this is the kind of thing guys do all the time. Like they literally had a movie about playing tag with each, as grown ass men. And for women, we always feel like sometimes, like maybe our stories don't get to have like the spotlight on them, or, we get to be like the heroes of the story that way. And so that was the fun part for us, of just like, we're going to take the stories that are like the messiest, the nastiest, like all inspired by our friends, and make it more heightened, and we're going to make it the center of the story, and see who bites. And you do that, because it makes you happy, it makes you laugh, and you hope like, the people who read it have that same reaction.
Well, we definitely laughed. So thanks.
Great. And now we have Ashley H.
So I have actually had a run-in with a vagina tattoo before, and it was a cat. It was a cat. It was insane. But I am so happy that because of this movie, vagina tattoos are in the mainstream conversation. I think we all really love seeing niche women's topics becoming part of the cultural zeitgeist. So do you think that this is at least partially due to female buddy comedies kind of taking the place of standard rom-coms or male-centric comedies? Because it seems like something like this would do better than, we're not seeing a lot of rom-coms come out anymore.
Yeah, I will say, just having worked in the industry for as long as I have, and there's a certain attitude towards female-led projects where they're seen as sometimes softer, not as hard-hitting. There were all these old ideas about, boys won't see a female-led movie, but girls will see a male-led feature. And again, whether or not there's any truth to that in the marketplace, like, we need to push forward for our stories being told. That there's a big perception in this country about like the roles of women, even up to this day, whether it's in terms of like leadership and being heroes, or being the leads of like movies, or whether we're funny enough. And so we don't, with this movie, we never wanted to lead with like, this is an important movie about representation. And, you just, the media is the message. You just go out there and be ridiculous and be funny. And we know like the people who've watched the movie have found it like funny and have found it moving. And so, it's just our faith that it will continue to have its life, and that will continue to find its audience, like whether it's in theaters or like in streaming and video afterwards. I by the way, I lost like the top part of your question, just because we started with like pussy tats, and then we went right into I said, we went from like genital tattoos, and then got into like,
as
like,
one does in life.
Yes. But, just in terms of like seeing rom-coms and seeing female-led comedies, I think, we have opened up, but like with anything, with female representation in movies, it's never going to be one movie or one time period that suddenly fixes racism or fixes misogyny in this country. It's this constant push that we have. So whether it's getting those movies out there or getting people to watch those movies, it's like we're always pushing.
For the record, my husband watched the movie with me and loved it as much as I did. I'm sure you're hearing that from many men, but just wanted to put that out there.
Clearly a man of impeccable taste.
I would say so.
Awesome. We have time for 2 more questions. So I have Alexis first, and then after that it'll be Tessa.
Thanks so much. Adele, just kind of piggybacking on a previous question, this movie is absolutely hilarious. Sabrina Wu is deadeye, and she doesn't even have to say anything, and you just bust a gut laughing. The film generally takes the tropes of like gender identity and cultural identity and sexual identity and busts them wide open, but there's some real kind of, there's a sweetness and a sadness and a trauma underlying their stories. So as a director, like, how do you balance those insane laughs with those real moments of tenderness?
Oh, that's an amazing question. And I think really like that's how we all lead our lives. at the heart of it, we all want to be loved and accepted and not feel like we're in a space where people are rooting against us. We want to just be embraced by the people we're around. And the way we all deal with it, like we don't wake up thinking, we all have trauma in our lives, and you don't get up thinking like, oh my God, today I have to deal with the trauma of like, gender representation in my life. You deal with it with like laughing your ass off about it with your friends, because that is how we cope. And so, and they are equal, authentic parts of ourselves, and they're not completely disparate or mutual experiences. And so we took that and use that lens for our movie, whether it was the character journeys or the tone of the movie. So, that even when they were making ridiculous, stupid jokes about, threesomes and hooking up, that it always came from a place of character, whether it's just like, I'm a person who's just like shy about embracing the sexual kinky side of me, or I'm trying to be a good girl, or, I'm just trying to fit in and be loved. Like the jokes always came from a real place, so that when the more emotional storyline kind of takes over, it doesn't feel like, oh, we're in a totally separate movie here.
Yeah, it's seamless. You can tell. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Tessa, your turn.
Yeah, so even though this clearly takes inspiration from other films, it still feels like it's something we haven't seen before. Feels completely new and fresh to me. And it seems like audiences and critics, the Rotten Tomatoes scores are fantastic. So what did it feel like when those kind of came in? Was it kind of like, okay?
Oh my gosh, it's such a relief. It's like being pregnant with a baby for like 4 years, and it comes out and you think it's the most precious, amazing, fantastic baby ever, but you don't know if people are going to think it's just, like hot trash. So when we put it out there and we got the reactions that we did, whether when we first shared it with like a public audience in South by, or when critics first started like, reacting to it, and even now, like it's still in theaters, having people come out and be surprised and have the reaction, it's such a relief, and it's just so affirming. Like audiences are so much more thoughtful, compassionate, open than I think the traditional studio system gives them credit for. And so I really hope the movie finds its people. Like I said, we, especially after the pandemic, like it's rewired how we behave, like us being able to like get together with people, have a shared communal experience. And some of my favorite experiences, in the last, 20 years, like with my friends, has been like going out with my girlfriends, getting like free gaming and going to a movie theater and just like having a good communal, like laugh, scream, howl, and unpacking that experience later. So I'm hoping, I think that's the spirit in which we made this movie, of like giving to like particularly a female skewing audience, something that, we greatly had and want so much more of in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw it and I was like, okay, this is like, I'm going to get my friends together and we got to go see it all together, because it'll be like that much more better. Like it's fantastic, but I'm like, it's going to be so much more fun, because like I can't wait to like see reactions as certain things happen, like I'll be watching my friends like, oh, wait till you see the tattoo.
Yeah, that's it. Like sometimes, when you're like screaming at, it's like so much, it's like with anything else, it's like food experiences is just so much better when you have like a crowd of people just like enjoying it with you.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to time. Thank you everyone for your time today. I'm sorry we couldn't get to everyone's second round of questions, but we really appreciate your interest, and we'll send through this recording later this afternoon.
Thank you. And I just want to say one last thing. Thank you all so much for joining us for this. This is something I brought up with Lionsgate, because like I said, with our team of filmmakers, like I was like the only like mom in this. And I felt like, especially when I was like a mother of younger children, like we're not a demographic that people look to. And I was just like, I needed that entertainment in my life. I don't want that audience and that demographic to be like looked over in this, because like we've seen things and we need the laughs. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. It was awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.